Welcome everyone. Today we are going to explore one of the most important topics of Indian geography, the eastern and western coastal plains. In this video we'll discuss about what are coastal plains, features and their division of western coastal plains and eastern coastal plains, and finally compare them in a simple and easy to remember way. So let's get started. When we talk about that what is a coastal plain, so coastal plain is a low-lying relatively flat landform along the coast of a sea or ocean which is often influenced and formed by the action of waves, tides and currents depositing sediments brought by the river or eroded from the land. So when we talk about any plain area which is lying along the coast of a sea or ocean, we can call it a coastal plain. And often any area which is lying such close to coast will be naturally being affected by the action of waves, tides, currents, and will naturally be either eroded or there some sediments will be deposited. Now in case of India, when we talk about, we have to look into two types of coastal plains. That is, here we have western coastal plains and here we have eastern coastal plains. So this area is lying close to the Arabian Sea and this area is lying close to the Bay of Bengal. Thus there are two coastal plains in India, western and eastern. Now let's start our discussion with the western coastal plain. So the first important feature of these are that it is a mixed shoreline. Now shoreline can either be emergent or submergent. Submergent is that basically there has been a submergence of the land and water has come over it, and emergence means that land has emerged or land has uplifted in place where earlier water used to be present. But the western coastal plains is a mixture of both emergent and submergent coastal plain, and it also has some stable shoreline. We'll discuss in coming slides that what part of western coastal plain is emergent and what part of it is submergent, but it's a mixed shoreline. When we look into a broad division of western coastal plain, we find that we have Kutch, Kathiawar, Konkan, Karnataka and Malabar. Together Kutch and Kathiawar and also Saurashtra becomes the Gujarat plains. So technically we have Gujarat plains, Konkan plains, Karnataka plains and Malabar plains. Now, when we start a discussion with the Kutch Peninsula, so Kutch is basically a shoreline of emergence. So, as we were referring to, that shoreline can either be emergent or submergent. We have looked into that Kutch is an emergent coastline. When we talk about the Kutch coastline, it is emergent because of two reasons. That is tectonic reason. That is during the time when Himalayas were being formed, there was also certain type of tectonic activity here and which led to the emergence of land. And the second reason is basically the deposition reason. We are aware of that above Kutch river Indus flows. Due to the deposition of sediments by river Indus, the Kutch Peninsula is basically regarded as an emergent land. And there are also salty marshes present which are called the Run of Kutch. So as earlier, over the land we used to have the ocean and water was present. From the water, these salty depositions were also deposited on the land. And when rivers like Banas and Luni form inland drainage in this Kutch Peninsula, they form salty marshes there. And it is called Run of Kutch. We are all aware of this Run of Kutch and we have seen the beautiful images of Run of Kutch. So now we are aware that Kutch is a emergent coastline. There are two reasons of it being an emergent, that is tectonic and deposition. Deposition by river Indus and tectonic activity because when Himalaya was being formed, some tectonic activity also took place here. And due to the inland drainage rivers such as Banas and Luni, which forms with the saline deposition and salty deposition, they form salty marshes which is called Run of Kutch. Now here also Bani grasslands are also present in Kutch area which are basically the largest grassland of India. So here you can see, here is the Kutch Peninsula part of the Gujarat plains. Now the Gujarat plain is basically, it consists of Kathiawar also along with the Kutch Peninsula. Now when we talk about this Kathiawar Peninsula, so it is basically composing of a Deccan Trap lava black soil. As we are all aware that when the Indian peninsula marked its journey towards the European plate, it in middle met the reunion hotspot. Because of the volcanism, Deccan traps were created, and due to that only the black soil is present in this area, which is very rich for crops like cotton. Now when we are looking into the Kathiawar plain, we are aware that here Deccan Trap lava black soil is still present, and it has also Gir range, which is the only existing habitat of the Great Asiatic lion, and it was also to be the places where cheetah were earlier to be introduced, but now Gangasagar Wildlife Sanctuary is the place where they will be introduced. That's the second place. Also Narmada and Tapi form estuaries here. They do not form delta. They form estuaries here. Estuary is a place where the river water meets the sea water. So we have discussed two parts of western coastal plain, that is Kutch part and Gujarat plain, which consists of Kathiawar. The second part that we have to discuss is basically the Konkan plain, which is present in Maharashtra and Goa. This area is called Konkan plain. So Konkan plain lies between Daman and Goa. It is an example of submergence or a submergent plain, and that's why the continental shelf here is wider, because the land has gone under the water has got more space, and thus the coastline here is wider. Now because the coastline here is wider and more water is present, it has many features like sea cliffs and many marine erosional features. So the point here that is important to be remembered is that Konkan plain is basically lying in Maharashtra and Goa, and here Konkani language is also spoken. When we talk about the Karnataka plain, there is no such important feature. Just to remember that it's a shoreline of submergence, and it lies entirely in the Karnataka state. The last one is the Malabar coast. Malabar coast is a little important due to one of its prominent feature and unique feature that we'll look into just now. It is a stable part. Stable part, what is meant by stable part? So stable part is basically that it is emergent. But as we looked into the Kutch Peninsula case, it was emergent due to two causes, that is tectonic and deposition. Whereas in the case of Malabar coast, it is just due to the deposition. There is no tectonic activity which is present, and thus it is considered a stable part. It lies from Mangalore to Kanyakumari, and it has many marine deposits, many lakes and lagoons, and also it has backwaters called kayas. So here is the image of kayas, and Kerala is very famous for this backwater boat tourism. Now what is this backwater? It is when from the coastal region water comes back in the inland region. So that is basically backwater. Now this backwater of Kerala are given a unique name that is called kayas. So we are done discussing the divisions and features of western coastal plains. We have basically till now discussed that there can be Kutch, Kathiawar. These form the Gujarat plains, Konkan, Karnataka, Malabar. Kutch is basically an emergent. Konkan is basically submergence, Karnataka is basically submergence, and Malabar is also emergent. Thus, in starting we mentioned that western coastal plains are a mixed shoreline. That is, they consist of both emergent and submergent, and stable coastline, stable being the Malabar coast. Now when we take our discussion to the next step, that is eastern coastal plains. In eastern coastal plains, we have first to look that it is situated between Bay of Bengal and Eastern Ghats, and it lies between the river Subarnarekha, which also forms a division between West Bengal and Odisha, and it ends at Kanyakumari. So it extends from Subarnarekha river to Kanyakumari. Now eastern coastal plain is more of an depositional plain, or it is more of an emergent plain. Now why is it emergent? Emergent because many multiple long rivers that flow into the Bay of Bengal and they form their deltas here, like Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri. So all of these, when flowing into Bay of Bengal, form their delta here. They deposit sediments here, and thus the alluvial deposits of major river are being deposited, and thus it's an emergent coastline. Now there are two basically divisions of this eastern coastal plain, that is northern Sirkar and Coromandel coast. When we are talking about the northern Sirkar, it is basically from the extension of river Mahanadi to that of Krishna. And when we talk from further of Krishna or the south of Krishna, it is the Coromandel coast. So when we are talking about the eastern coastal plain based on river, we can divide it into two parts, that is northern Sirkar and that is Coromandel. The dividing line between them is Krishna. The north of Krishna is basically northern Sirkar, starting from Mahanadi river delta, and the south of it is Coromandel coast. And we are aware that eastern coastal plain is an emergent coast. Now, are basically shoreline of emergence. That this point we have already seen. Now, when we try to divide the eastern coastal plain based on the regional divisions, we can divide it into basically Utkal plains or the Odisha plains. We can divide it into Andhra plains, and we can divide it into Tamil Nadu plains. Now, when we start looking at the Utkal plains or the Odisha plains, it is basically the home, or it has the Chilika Lake. Now, this Chilika Lake is the biggest lake in India. And when we talk about the Andhra plain, it is to the south of Utkal plain, and it has an important feature which is Kolleru Lake. Kolleru Lake was once a lagoon, but due to the constant deposition of Krishna and Godavari delta, it has now basically become a inland location. For example, now earlier this used to be the Kolleru Lake, but now due to constant deposition it has been filled up and it has become now a part of the inland, because constant deposition has been made here. So it has basically, due to constant deposition of alluvial deposits, it is led to the emergence of land, and thus now it has become a part of the inland lake system. So the important point about the Andhra plain is basically about the Kolleru Lake, and it extends till the Pulicat Lake. Now the Pulicat Lake is the division between Andhra plain and between the Tamil Nadu plain. Tamil Nadu plain is from Pulicat Lake to Kanyakumari. Now we all are aware that western coastal plain also end at Kanyakumari. We have seen that Malabar coast ended at Kanyakumari, and we have seen that now the Tamil Nadu plain also ended at Kanyakumari. So both eastern and western coastal plains meet at Kanyakumari. Now when we look at the comparison of western coastal plains and eastern coastal plain, the first point that you have to look into is that what are the states and UTs that they cover. So western coastal plain basically cover Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala, and also the UT of Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli in between. Whereas when we look into the eastern side, we have West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and also the union territory of Puducherry. So we have seen Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala. Here we have seen West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. This is the extent of both eastern and western coastal plains. Now where they are situated? So here when we see that the western coastal plains are situated between the Arabian Sea and Western Ghats, whereas the eastern coastal plains are between the Bay of Bengal and Eastern Ghats. So they are sandwiched between Western Ghat and Arabian Sea, and they are sandwiched between Eastern Ghat and Bay of Bengal. Now, what is the width of plain? Now we are all aware that western coastal plain is a mixture of emergent, submergent and stable coastline, whereas eastern coastal plain are mostly emergent, so thus they are relatively narrow as they are submergent, and also the average width is basically between 50 to 65 kilometer. Because they are emergent and constant deposition is being done by large major rivers like Krishna, Godavari, Kaveri, Puleru, we have wide and broad eastern coastal plains ranging from 80 to 120 kilometer. When we talk about the coast, it is usually considered an example of submergent coast because mostly part is submergent, but we also have emergent and stable. Emergent in the form of, we have already seen that Kutch, and stable in the form of Malabar. It is an example of emergent coastline. When we talk about the river and landforms, so it is strained by short and fast flowing rivers like Narmada and Tapi, and they do not form any type of delta, rather they form estuaries and lagoons. And they also form in Malabar, we have seen an important feature, that is Kayal, or that is backwater. However, when you talk about the eastern coastal plains, it is strained by major long rivers like Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri that forms extensive and fertile deltas. So when deltas are formed, basically when at the end the huge deposition is done by the river and then it meets the ocean. Whereas when it swiftly meets the ocean or when it quickly meets the ocean, then is when estuaries are formed. So in the case of Narmada and Tapi, they form estuaries, but in the case of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri, they form fertile deltas. When we talk about that which coastal plain is better for agriculture, we see that western coastal plain, because it is submergent and it does not have fertile alluvial deposit, it is less fertile because it is submergent and less alluvial deposit. Except certain type of crops can be grown like spices, coconut and rice in the Malabar region. However, because these major river deposit their fertile alluvial deposits on the eastern coastal plains, it is highly alluvial and highly fertile, and it is considered better for crops like rice, and thus it is given the name of granary of South India. When we talk about port and harbors, so western coastal plain is considered more good for the natural ports. Why for natural ports it is considered good? Because it has deep and indented underwater profile. Now we have seen like many like grooves are present. So this is basically indented, and it is basically better for the natural port to be present. And they can also take better advantage of high tide and low tide. We have ports like Mumbai, Kochi, Kandla, etc. Whereas eastern coastal plain are considered better for artificial ports because they have shallow water as more type of deposition is being done by the rivers and near the emergent coast, and it requires regular dredging and regular technology application has been done to make it accessible for or to convert it into artificial ports. We have ports like Chennai, Visakhapatnam on the eastern coastal plains. So through our discussion, we have basically discussed that what is the meaning of coastal plains. Then we have discussed what are the basic features. Then we have discussed the division, and in end we have also discussed the comparison. We have done with all of these things in this video, and I hope it's helpful to all of you. If you find it helpful, do like to my channel and subscribe. Thank you.